Monti Ossenfort has the opportunity to do everything or nothing as the cut day deadline approaches. What the hell is he going to do? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner _. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. If you want to leave a review wherever you can, cool. I'm just happy that you're here. I don't really care about what the actual ratings are. I just love what I do. This is going into my 8th season hosting this podcast, been in sports radio since 2011 in Phoenix. So this is going to be one of the more exciting years that we've seen for any Phoenix sports team over the last 15 years or so. A lot of unknowns still, a lot of question marks. There's still time. Monti Ossenfort wheeled and dealed towards the tail end of the offseason last season. And I will give my disclaimer now. I didn't want to wait till the end of the day to record this. I felt like the anticipation and kind of working through things that we don't know about yet was more fun than just reporting what happened. There's been one move made that I'll discuss in a sec. It's really, low level, but there are options for Monti Ossenfort to be able to fill this roster out and keep the slow and steady approach that he's been preaching, that I've been mirroring, because you can't speed this process up. It's just every day that goes by and other players become available, it kind of changes the conversation where it's like, well, if they do this and it's not too expensive, they're still going to have all the money in the world to spend next year if they add a couple pieces this offseason. So I'll discuss more in depth. What if no more moves are made? That's what we've talked about up until this point. But now with more information, what does it mean? The QB2 list grows. There are a couple quarterbacks that have been put on the trade block for a couple different teams. One specifically, 2 quarterbacks on one squad, one of whom I'm high on, and I was this offseason as one of the targets the Cardinals should have gone after. But first, is there a world where Monti Ossenfort can sign Yannick Ngakoue and trade for Haason Reddick? Because that would be the perfect storm, positive one, that could move the needle defensively for the Cardinals. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube TV and YouTube. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. So I've been in the camp every day, as you'll know this. If this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, thank you. I'll give you a little synopsis, chronology of things. I don't think they should have touched Yannick Ngakoue nor trade for Haason Reddick, given the money that he wanted. Okay, Yannick Ngakoue is coming off an injury. He's still a free agent for a reason. He's probably looking for the biggest payday, and somebody will give it to him. That doesn't mean it needs to be the Cardinals. With that said, now that the Cardinals have traded Cam Thomas, which they did last night to Kansas City, the other move that they made this morning was releasing Desmond Ridder, who they just traded for Rondale Moore. Think of the world like this. Think of this as a possibility. And I was going through my head. I'm like, okay, so sure. The Cardinals defense is going to be tough this year. Cam Thomas wasn't a difference maker at all during his time here. Being a preseason warrior doesn't necessarily translate. And it also shows, I would assume, how high they are on Xavier Thomas, who's a guy 5th round pick out of Clemson. The dude balled out this preseason. But their outside linebacker room is very, very, very light. Very light. So I was thinking about it this way. I'm like, okay, so here's the world. They signed Yannick Ngakoue to a 2-year deal for whatever, $23 million with $12 million guaranteed, something like that, where it's team friendly. You maybe make it more front heavy, and then you do a team option for year 2, whatever it is. And then if they do offer, say, a 4th round pick for Haason Reddick, which would be the most that they would have to trade for, and you can get him to do a more boosted 2-year deal, which is what Monti Ossenfort's special has been with Kazir White early on, even though that was very team friendly, with Jonah Williams, with Sean Murphy Bunting. These are shorter term deals. If you can get Haason Reddick to agree to that, obviously before you trade for him, where it's like a 3-year deal with $30 million guaranteed, split over the first 2 years, no guaranteed money in the third year, you're still looking at $70 million of cap space in 2025. So naturally, that's in a vacuum. Haason Reddick probably won't take that. Yannick Ngakoue will probably he may become a Jadeveon Clowney like he already has been. These hired guns pass rushers who are making 12, 10, 12, 12, 12, 10, 12, wherever they go, and they're going to make a career out of that. But if they can figure out a situation where the money works, let her rip. Because the thing is, if you can bring both of those guys in, that would move the needle. Not one, both. And I know that this is a fleeting, it's got maybe one little string tied to reality, for sure. And they've got the money, they need the talent, and they're going to have so much money next year on top of if they were to spend the money this year on those two guys, that it wouldn't hurt them. And that's the beauty of building through the draft, having a lot of inexpensive contracts for the next couple seasons. And that would immediately put them in the conversation for a top 20 defense in 2024, which in turn would give the Cardinals that boost necessary to maybe sneak into a playoff spot this year. A lot of things need to happen, but it's a lot more cut and dry than needing to bring a third team in or something stupid like that. Like some NBA 19 players get traded and 48 draft picks and 38 pick swaps. It's not that. You sign Yannick Ngakoue, you trade a 4th-round pick for Haason Reddick. They don't need to get younger. And that's the thing. No, you need the draft picks. No, you don't. No, you don't. Keep your first 2. The rest are up for grabs if you can trade for talent and pay them, because they're going to have the money to do it. So if they want to expedite the process a bit, and this isn't saying that Haason Reddick is a 30-year-old pass rusher when the season starts, and Yannick Ngakoue, who's on the tail end of his peak of his career, it's not like you're trading for Nick Bosa and whoever. It's not going to be that all-pro defense now, but it's going to be that 0-1 jump that you're looking to make in 2025, but you could make it in 2024. And the big question is with Monti Ossenfort, and I was going to do this at the top, but I feel like it's just infused into every conversation we have, so I can just mention it here before we pivot. He has the ability to do everything and to do nothing. I don't feel like it's going to be anything in between. There are so many snaps for pass rushers that are open right now. So why not make a splash while not breaking the bank? They've got, between what they have this year and next year, they have over $120 million to spend roughly. The wide receiver room's shoring up for at least the next couple seasons. The running back room, shoring up for at least the next couple seasons. Safety position, couple seasons. Pass rush, who the hell knows? Cornerback room, who the hell knows? That's an interesting one also. I don't think that they're going to go out and sign a corner. It's too late. It's too late in the game. Like, the Malcolm Butler thing was weird a couple years ago. Obviously, he never played a snap for the Cardinals. But, James Bradbury is potentially up via trade. If you want to throw a 6th-round pick and grab James Bradbury, okay, you can have a conversation. But pass rush is the biggest one. And with pass rushers, sure, there's scheme involved. Sure, there's stunts involved. Sure, there's a defense you need to learn. But see quarterback, hit quarterback is a lot easier than playing a cornerback role in a scheme, especially one like Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis, which is so all over the place, so broad spectrum-wise on the different sets that they'd have on a given play. So if you tell me Yannick Ngakoue $12 million guaranteed over the next 2 years, and you tell me Haason Reddick gets a J.J. Watt deal, 3-year, $40 million, 25 guaranteed, front loaded with a team option for that third year, and you see all the money that they had to spend, do it. But do both, not just one. And that is the thing that Monti Ossenfort's going to have to decide. Like, you've got the cheese. Do you spend it? Guess we'll see. The disclaimer is, again, I'm recording this at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So if anything happens after this, I didn't overlook it. I'm hoping nothing's going to happen as I'm recording. But I will cover, I'll discuss everything that's happened tomorrow with things that have happened after I recorded today. Quarterback 2 list grows. It's actually pretty enticing. I'll discuss it next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, so of course we'll talk a lot about it. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game, which is wild. All you'll need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. If you haven't experienced Sunday Ticket on YouTube, baby doll, it is incredible. The 4-game look is wild. And all you have to do is just cursor over with your remote so you can hear the audio of whatever game you want to hear, or you can throw red zone in the upper left-hand corner. It is bonkers. You definitely need to take advantage of this. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Thanks for hanging out. It's a fluid situation. And even though I've discussed stand pat, stay the course, shoot for 2025, bolstering the defensive talent level, it's just weird. And I know that, anybody that says, oh, Cam Thomas, that makes sense that they cut him. He was a fringe guy anyways. Stop it. Don't guess. Don't make it look like you're smarter than you are. We have no idea. This roster is so fluid. Yep, it makes sense. He was a fringe guy. Come on. He was arguably the best pass rusher the Cardinals had during the preseason. Fringe guy? This outside linebacker room? Really? Come on. Do better. But with the trade, they got a 7th-round pick for the Chiefs. It just adds intrigue, I think. Cam Thomas wasn't going to be an impact guy. But if there was a way to make the pass rusher room worse, Monti Ossenfort did that. Why? That's the big question. Why? Is it in line for a big move? And I don't think trading for Haason Reddick is a massive move. Now, 4-year, $140 million, $90 million guaranteed. Yeah, ain't going to happen, dog. It's not going to happen. But if you can find a middle ground, especially with the team option for the 3rd year, and you front load the money when they have all this space, it's not crazy. He's got another couple good years left. And he doesn't have to be Nick Bosa. He doesn't have to be the best pass rusher in the world. If you pair him with Yannick Ngakoue, that could be a fun front. Coupled with, the interior defensive line talent that the Cardinals have added. And then when B.J. Ojulari comes back next year, you're in business. And when Darius Robinson comes back this year, you're in business. It's just interesting. Or he could completely punt and just have the offense lead it. And, people will meet that with disdain. But it's part of the bigger picture. And that's what he's been preaching the entire time through his actions. So the QB2 list grows. There's a couple names. I've been on the Ryan Tannehill train because he's the best free agent quarterback out there. Now, Jameis Winston and Brett Hundley, both of whom play for the Cleveland Browns. There's a report out by Mary Kay Cabot, who's been done incredible work in Cleveland for a long time covering the Browns. She said that they could both be up via trade. And there were 2 names that I thought the Cardinals should bring in, at least for a look, this offseason. And it was Tyrod Taylor and Jameis Winston. 2 different skill sets. Jameis is obviously more the spectrum is a little bit wider for him for outcomes. Tyrod Taylor is methodical. He's a metronome. His floor is higher than Jameis Winston's. Now, the ceiling, Jameis Winston's ceiling has always been astronomically high. He's just always gotten in his own way. So if you look at Jameis Winston And after they cut Desmond Ridder, it's like, all right, they're going to bring another quarterback in. You'd expect it to be a veteran. I think Jameis Winston is perfect. There's like I've seen some outlets say that Brett Hundley's the guy. Brett Hundley had like 5 good games 2 years ago. He forgot how to play quarterback when Lamar Jackson got hurt last time. Jameis Winston, at least, under the right tutelage and in the right scheme, can maximize the skill position players the Cardinals have. Especially with the run-first offense, where he's not going to have to just make magic happen. Drew Petzing can get the best out of Jameis Winston. This isn't a Dennis Allen situation in New Orleans, or whoever the hell was the head coach before Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay. It's escaping me. It doesn't really matter. Oh, Bruce Arians. Like, doesn't really matter. Jameis Winston in this scheme could be the 70% of Kyler Murray that you need the backup quarterback to be in 2024 to keep this team afloat and moving forward, and not having a complete hard stop on the 2024 season if Kyler Murray misses 2 or 3 games. I think Jameis Winston would be an absolute bona fide no-brainer. You can get him for a 6th just to say you traded somebody for him. Like, I honestly do not see a downside to trading for Jameis Winston. The downside I see is rolling out Clayton Tune there as QB2. That's the downside I see. It's not something that would set the Cardinals up for success if Kyler Murray were to get hurt. Jameis Winston's a pro, okay? He's really cleaned up his act, since being kind of a wild card early on. And from everything that I've heard from my friends in the business in New Orleans, said he's an incredible teammate. And that's what you need from a backup quarterback. He also is never going to vie for the starting role if Kyler Murray's healthy. So it's a perfect backup situation. And I think if the Cardinals can grab him, you do it. I don't really, if you say choose between Ryan Tannehill and Jameis Winston, I would say Jameis Winston just because it'll be inexpensive. You can trade a draft pick for him. Ryan Tannehill's going to want fringe starter money. He's probably going to want $9 or $10 million a year, which to have as a backup, it's a lot of money. That's what, listen, the Jets gave Tyrod Taylor like $8 million a year, or $8 million guaranteed over 2 years. $8 million a year, whatever it is, it's more than what a backup quarterback should get. So listen, the quarterback role is fluid, just like the rest of the roster. It's Kyler Murray. They're going to bring in another guy. I would assume they're going to bring him in today. That's the reports. That's not me being like, I've got some inside scoop. I don't pretend to be what I'm not. I'm not a reporter. I'm not a journalist. I work in sports radio. It's completely different. But the clock is ticking. And this is about the time where they traded for Josh Dobbs last year. So at least say you just hope that Kyler Murray doesn't get hurt. Obviously, that's the smartest thing I've ever said. More than likely. But if he does, you've got a guy who's been in the offense for 2 seasons in Clayton Tune, but you've got a more talented guy that you're going to bring in who could elevate this offense more than Clayton Tune could. And I think we'll find out, if I were to guess, we would have the Cardinals signing a third quarterback today or trading for one. And we'll see. It could be right after I record this damn show. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day, every single day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. What happens if they don't do anything? What's that look like? Next. So, hi. If you've listened to this or watched this show at all over the last month or longer, you'll know that I'm resigned to the fate that the Cardinals defense is going to be bad in 2024. The offense will carry it, and then they'll go ham with talent on the defensive side of the ball in 2025. And the reason why I am taking this approach towards this is because it seems healthy. It's different, but it seems healthy. It seems like the natural way to completely reconstruct an organization and its roster. coupled with the fact that I say this almost every show now on purpose. Kyler Murray can play another 10 years, okay? So this isn't like, oh, they're wasting his career or, oh, they're wasting his contract. Oh, it's going to get more expensive. No, it's going to be expensive for the next 3 or 4 seasons. They can chill. And the offense is ready to rock. If you tell me this offense is a top 10 offense at the end of the year, I'll be like, yeah, okay. Well, must mean everybody stayed healthy. That's awesome. And if you tell me as currently constructed, this defense is a bottom 3 defense, I'll be like, yeah, that makes sense. So what we saw last year on the defensive side of the ball was wizardry as directly correlated to who was playing football for the Cardinals on defense. People are quick to forget how much Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon got out of that defense last year. Even with LJ Collier going down, Zaven Collins was, a ghost. I think he had 3 turnovers, 4/turnovers in a couple game span, but that was it. They didn't have a sack for the last half of the season. They didn't have a sack for the last half of the season. And they were in the majority of games through, 2.5 quarters. And then it would kind of fall off because there's only so much you can do with that talent level. So they've added more talent, not blockbuster stuff, not Montez Sweat or Christian Wilkins. There were like 4 big name defensive guys that were hit free agency this year. It's like the Cardinals were like la 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 la. It wasn't like that. So there's no question that Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon are to get the most out of the guys that were currently employed by the Arizona Cardinals who play defense. And if that's what they're going to roll with, it's going to be rough. But the offense is 1,000 times better than it was last year. So it's going to balance out. If the Cardinals win 7 games this year or 8 games this year, that is a massive improvement from last year. So if that's what Monti Ossenfort is thinking, what if no more moves are made? No big name. They're going to bring in another quarterback, okay? But that's not a needle mover. It would be worse if that quarterback that they bring in actually played because that means Kyler Murray got hurt, which is obviously not what you want ever for anybody. But the one thing to keep in mind and remember is the defense is better this year than it was last year. Even with Bijay Ojulari out for the year, this defense is better than it was last year. It couldn't be, talent-wise, it couldn't have been worse. Budda Baker missed time. It wasn't good. So incremental growth coupled with some key veteran additions, which they've done this year, equals better output. So if Monti Ossenfort chooses to punt on the rest of the offseason on defense, it's like, okay, this isn't a surprise. It's what he did last year. It's what he's doing this year. They're gathering funds. Michael Bidwell Jr.'s cheap compared to a lot of other owners. He's not as rich as other owners. Doesn't have the money to spend in a lot of cases. So Monti Ossenfort may be hamstrung. I don't think we don't know anything about that yet. So I'm not giving. I shouldn't even have said that, especially for people who think that I'm just a Monti Ossenfort truther and I don't think he's done any wrong. That would be. That would be compounding that, where I'm blaming Michael Bidwell instead of blaming Monti Ossenfort. But we don't know. It's still a so far so good situation. It's still a so far so good. There's time left. It's not abnormal for teams to make bigger moves towards the start of the season, especially with veterans who are looking for a payday. But look, if you got to overpay for Yannick Ngakoue 1 year, $12 million, at this point, they have so much money to spend. But I still don't think that's going back to the first segment. It's Yannick Ngakoue and Haason Reddick or neither. Either you make that push or you don't. You don't waffle in the middle. You don't, Humpty Dumpty back one way or the other on the sitting on the damn brick wall, whatever the hell it was. I haven't read that in a long time. So what if no moves are made aside from bringing in a quarterback? Because they're going to bring in a third quarterback. You have to. What if no other impact moves are made? Giddy up, offense. That was the plan all along. Yesterday, my first segment was nothing's changed. And not in a bad way. The course is stayed. Nothing is like fans overreact. And, I'm talking about you. You know that you overreact. And it's fun. I overreact sometimes. Playoff or bust right after they get Marvin Harrison Jr. Add more players a week and a half before the season starts. It's like, the roster was the same both times. It was the same. Nothing's changed. And that's not a bad thing. That's what the course Monti Ossenfort is taking. They got so much out of last year's roster. And this roster is 10 times better. So while they may not be a 12-5 team like you want them to be this year, this is something I'll leave you with. Everydayers, bear with me. But this is one thing that needs to be, especially where the Cardinals are now in their history. This has never been a destination place for free agents to want to come and play winning football. This has been a paycheck destination. A lot more Rodney Hudsons and Terrell Suggs than people who actually want to come play here to win. There's been no trust transfer. There's been no, I love playing there. Telling people's friends when they retire. It's always the opposite. So, even if the Cardinals only win 6 or 7 games this year, and they play exactly the way they played last year, the same fire and passion and preparedness and preparation and all that stuff, that rings throughout the entire NFL with free agents. And that's something that is a complete unlocking of potential when you turn into a place that free agents want to come play at. Oh, and maybe even take not all the money. All it takes is a couple guys. Like, man, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, James Conner, they need a pass rusher? Oh, yeah. Let's roll. It just takes 1 or 2 guys that want to come play here. And the fastest track to making that happen is the Cardinals ball out in 2024. And while obviously there are more expectations to win games this year than there were last year, the big picture here is build a culture and an ecosystem surrounded by playing your ass off, being well coached, and having stars in the right places to make it fun to watch this team play. That will make other players want to come play here. And that's something we may have never seen in the Valley. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.